So in the previous video, we talked about what kind of data we can deal with, and we understand that there are three kind of data sets, data which is available. One is structured data, second is unstructured data, and the third one is semi-structured data. And you must be wondering like why we have this semi-structured data. And trust me guys, this is one of the most useful data which you can ever encounter. And let's understand the definition first, and then we'll talk about this. For example, semi-structured data is, by the name you can understand that it has got some structure, right? That some schema has been applied to it, and I'll be giving you some example, then you will have exact understanding that what I'm talking about. For example, let's read the definition first. A semi-structured data is the data which doesn't conforms to a data model but has some structure. It lacks a fixed or rigid schema. It is a data that doesn't reside in relational database but have got some organization properties which makes it easier to analyze. With some process we can store them in relational databases as well. All right, so now let's understand this whole thing. For example, you remember this online forms. When you put in something on these online forms and it asks you for your first name, and you say that my name is United States of America, then it takes your first name as United States of America. Even if you put in mobile number over there, it will just pick up that number, and then that will be your first name in their databases. Whatever I'll type in there, it will be picked up as a hard coded thing, right? It cannot understand anything else apart from what you have put in. The unstructured data is like a notepad, right, where you can write any line with any text without any punctuations or marks or like anything, right? You just keep on writing. I will just keep on extending itself, right? You will have a text or notepad kind of stuff. Now the semi-structured data is very much like an email system, right? So when you write an email, in the to field you write everything. You can just simply say abracadabra@gmail.com and it will just work. There is only one condition which you need to follow, is that there should be @ and the domain name. If it doesn't matter, right, what you have written there before @, but it just picks up the email address. Similarly, if you go to subject field, there you type you can type in anything. You can type in any number or text or any like symbols, but it has a limit, like it should be like between 50 to 100 letters or not more than that. So the point which I'm trying to make over here is that in the email, right, you have certain restrictions, and not all restrictions, right? You can just type in anything in those 50 and like 100 words in subject line, but in the email you can just type in anything. You can just put in there the images or video links or URL or GIFs. You can put in anything there. So you have certain restrictions, and then but most of the things are open, and this kind of data is very much flexible to pick up the data around us. For example, on the Facebook, you can write anything, any post. You can write one line, you can write n number of lines, or you can just even pick up any URL, or you are flexible. You are free to choose whatever you want to type in that confined boundary. In semi-structured data, there is some kind of restrictions, but they are not very much rigid. There are some restrictions which are rigid, but some of the restrictions which are open, and it depends upon user what kind of information you want to type in, right? Now what is the characteristic of semi-structured data? It doesn't conforms to a data model but has got some structures. It can be stored not like anything which is not SQL, and you can simply say no SQL databases, for example. So when I say no SQL databases, there is a specific type of storages which are called no SQL databases. And what is this no SQL databases? Which says not only SQL. They can store the data which doesn't have schema attached to it, or you can say metadata attached to it. So they can be any data set which can be stored in any NoSQL, and they are gaining a lot of popularity. So you might be hearing this that from many people that I'm working on NoSQL databases, or I'm working on SQL or RDBMS databases or something like that. So when somebody is working on NoSQL databases, which means that they have the capability of storing any kind of data. But why people still store the data in RDBMS? Because RDBMS is much more suitable for applying queries and fetching the data best. Now semi-structured data, when it becomes like huge, it's difficult to fetch that information and find that information. There are methods to do the same as well, but that brings you to big data sort of stuff. But again, there are methods to identify or even search in semi-structured data as well. And semi-structured data is huge. It's very, very huge. So semi-structured data contains tags and elements which are metadata, but they are not very much restricted. This metadata is used to group the data and describe how the data is being stored. And then similar kind of like entities can be grouped together. Similar kind of attributes can be grouped together, and then you can infer a lot of information from there as well. Size of the data and the attributes may keep on differing, but it just doesn't have well-defined structure, but it can be used. It can be used for multiple purposes, but it cannot be used directly to put the data into RDBMSs. Now, what are the sources of structured data? Emails, XML files, binary executable files, TCP/IP packets, zip files, integration of data from different sources, web pages. And what are the types of this semi-structured data you might have dealt with? You might have dealt with XML files. You might have dealt with JSON files or Parquet files or Avro files. These are the different types of semi-structured data which is available, and like industry is using these type of unstructured data. Now, what are the different advantages of semi-structured data? Data is not constrained by a fixed schema. It's flexible. Schema can be changed according to the data type. It is portable. It is possible for us to collect the data and view the data as a whole. It supports user who cannot express their need in SQL. It can deal easily with the heterogeneity of the resources. Like if you have the data coming from multiple resources, it can be stored in semi-structured way, and then you can later on deal with it. Now, if you talk about the disadvantages of semi-structured data, it's the basic advantages are like there is a lack of fixed and rigid schema, and because of which like people use it for flexible purposes, and that's where the problem is, that you cannot store this kind of data. Interpreting the relationship between data is difficult as there is no separation of the schema and the data, and queries are less efficient as compared to structured data, which we have already discussed. Alright, so we've understood three kinds of data sets. One is structured data, second one is unstructured data, and the third one is semi-structured data. Now we're going to jump into the portion wherein we talk about what will happen if we have huge amount of data. That is, what will happen if you have big data, right? So let's deep dive into the big data technologies in the upcoming sessions. We'll talk about big data and where it is coming from, how it is being generated, what to do with it, how to deal with it, almost everything to it. I hope you enjoyed this section. I'll see you in the next section about big data. See you there.